Oh, come on, let me see you get gone.
Get gone.
Baby mamas, this your song. Been pregnant for way too long. Now tell the DJ turn it off. Turn it off.
If she a baby mama,
Go ahead.
she gon' do that.
A mother and daughter both pregnant by the same man. Even saying the sentence out loud feels like crossing into a world where reality blurs with shock value, curiosity, judgment, and complicated human emotions. But this story, the story of Jade, her mother Dani, and 26-year-old rapper Nicholas Hunter, isn't fiction. It's a real situation that has exploded across the internet, sparking one of the biggest debates about love, boundaries, consent, modern relationships, and whether family bonds should ever mix with romantic ones. People are divided. Some call it love, some call it disturbing, and some say it's simply none of society's business. But behind the viral headlines, there's a deeper human story, a story about choices, emotional needs, longing for security, broken boundaries, and a relationship dynamic that challenges everything society considers normal. When the first video surfaced, the internet didn't believe it. A mother and daughter smiling into the camera, Dani resting her hand on her belly and Jade doing the same, announcing that they were both pregnant. At first, people assumed it was some kind of joke, some clickbait scheme, some internet prank meant to grab views. But the real shock came when Nicholas appeared between them, wrapping an arm around each woman as he introduced himself as their partner, not the mother's boyfriend, not the daughter's boyfriend, but both. The clip raced across TikTok, then Instagram, then Twitter, and within hours it became a global conversation. Comments poured in, people furious, people laughing, people confused, others deeply concerned and some oddly supportive. But the trio kept repeating the same thing. Their relationship was consensual, supportive, and filled with love. It was unconventional, yes. Untraditional, absolutely. But according to them, it worked. Behind the viral moment, though, was a long story. One that didn't begin with the internet and didn't begin with an intention to shock the world. It began quietly, the way many complicated stories do, with a broken marriage, loneliness, and a young man who entered one woman's life before eventually entering another's. Dani, the mother, had been separated for years. Her marriage had been the kind that slowly withers, not because of one explosive event, but because of silent disappointments that build over time. And like many single mothers trying to rebuild their lives in their 40s, she struggled with the idea of finding companionship again. The world isn't always kind to older women. Choices become limited. Confidence gets shaky. Dani often felt invisible. Meanwhile, her daughter Jade, in her early 20s, was the opposite, full of energy, outgoing, confident, and active on social media. The two had always shared a close bond, sometimes more like sisters than mother and daughter. They lived together, helped each other, laughed together, disagreed loudly but loved deeply. And because of that closeness, their emotional boundaries were already thinner than what many families would consider typical. They shared outfits. They shared experiences. They shared opinions. Eventually, they shared something much bigger. Nicholas entered their lives through Jade first. He was a rapper trying to build a following, charming, charismatic, the kind of man who could talk his way into any room. Jade met him online, and it didn't take long before they started dating. He would visit the house, sit in the living room with Jade while Dani walked around, sometimes chatting casually with him, sometimes giving them privacy. But Dani noticed something. Whenever Jade wasn't around, Nicholas wasn't awkward or distant like most boyfriends might be around the mother. He was warm. He was friendly. He made her laugh. That spark, small, accidental, unintended, was the first sign of a storm that none of them saw coming. Over the months, Jade and Nicholas's relationship became serious. But it wasn't perfect. They fought often. They were both strong-willed, both emotional, both stubborn. And during one of their biggest fights, when Jade was gone at a friend's house, Dani and Nicholas spoke for hours. What began as a conversation about helping him understand, Jade turned into talking about life. Love, hurt, loneliness, dreams. Dani told him about her marriage struggles, her fear of growing old alone, and he listened in a way she hadn't experienced in years. One conversation became two. Two became daily exchanges, and slowly, lines that should never blur started to fade. People online imagined betrayal, a man sneaking around, a mother acting in secrecy. But according to all three of them, that wasn't how it happened. The truth was more complex and, in a way, even more uncomfortable. The emotional bond formed slowly, subtly, right in front of everyone. And the moment Jade realized what was happening, instead of immediately rejecting it, she found herself caught between shock, confusion, and a strange sense of acceptance. Their relationship dynamic didn't flip overnight. It transitioned through a stage of emotional dependence where all three relied on each other for different things. Dani for security, Jade for companionship, Nicholas for the sense of importance and validation he received from being adored by two women. Then came the moment that changed everything. Jade discovered she was pregnant first. It was unplanned, but she wasn't entirely upset. She felt ready to start a new chapter. Nicholas was nervous but agreed to take responsibility. Dani was surprised but supportive. But underneath her support was something she hadn't fully confronted, her own emotional connection to the same man. Not even 2 months later, Dani began feeling strange, fatigue, nausea, mood swings. At first, she assumed it was stress or hormonal changes, but when the test came back positive, she sat frozen in the bathroom for nearly an hour. The questions hit her like a storm. How would she tell Jade? How would she tell the world? Was she a bad mother? Was she a foolish woman grasping at love? When she finally sat her daughter down, Dani expected screaming, crying, anger, maybe even hatred. But Jade didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. She simply stared at her mother stunned, trying to piece together 1,000 broken feelings at once. Betrayal, pity, disbelief, love, confusion. Everything tangled into one overwhelming moment. And according to them, hours later after many tears and conversations, something unexpected happened. Acceptance. They realized their relationship with Nicholas wasn't traditional, and neither was their bond as mother and daughter. Their closeness, which had always been both a blessing and a complication, created a space where forgiveness came more easily than most people could comprehend. They restructured their relationship from the inside out, choosing unity over division. But the internet is not as forgiving. Once their story reached social media, people erupted. Some called it disgusting. Some called it immoral. Some called it deeply unhealthy. Psychologists online warned about emotional enmeshment, generational trauma, boundary collapse. Others accused Nicholas of manipulation, calling him a predator who took advantage of two vulnerable women at different stages of life. Many argued that no matter how consenting the situation may be, the psychological consequences could be long-lasting. And for children, the complexity of growing up with half-siblings, who are also an aunt or uncle, was a major concern raised by the public. But among all the chaos, there was another side of the conversation. Some people applauded their honesty. Others said judgment has no place in consensual adult relationships. A few argued that family dynamics vary across cultures and communities, and that society's idea of normal changes with time. Many also pointed out that non-traditional relationships, polyamory, open relationships, age gap couples exist widely, just not always publicly. Still, the moral debate remained intense, because this wasn't just polyamory. This wasn't just an age gap. This wasn't just unconventional love. This was something that broke a taboo deeply rooted in human social structure. 2 generations sharing the same romantic partner and becoming pregnant by him. At the time, people weren't just reacting to the unconventional nature, they were reacting to the collapse of roles. A mother and daughter are supposed to guide each other, not share the same partner. A parent is supposed to be a boundary. A daughter is supposed to be protected, not placed in a position where emotional roles overlap. That overlap is what made the internet call the story chaotic. But for Jade and Dani, boundaries weren't broken. They were redefined. They claimed that their dynamic was built on communication, honesty, and shared understanding. Nicholas repeatedly stated that he wasn't forcing or manipulating anyone, emphasizing that both women chose the relationship willingly. Of course, skeptics question this. Could a daughter ever truly consent to sharing a partner with her own mother? Could a mother ever make such a choice without influencing her daughter emotionally? Could a young man resist the ego boost or psychological control this dynamic might provide? These were questions that the internet argued endlessly, but the trio ignored the noise. Instead, they focused on preparing for their babies, 2 children who would be brothers or sisters while simultaneously also being uncle, aunt, and nephew, niece. The family tree would be tangled, the titles unusual, but in their view, love, no matter how untraditional, was still love. Their daily life, as they shared online, was surprisingly ordinary. They shopped for baby clothes. They cooked meals together. They laughed at jokes about cravings. They planned nursery spaces. They filmed TikToks. They showed moments of affection that made some viewers cringe, others laugh, and a few genuinely smile. But beneath the surface of their videos, there were moments of vulnerability too. Subtle expressions, flickers of doubt in their eyes, pauses before answering certain questions. Because even if they were committed, even if they believed in their choices, they were still human. And humans are not immune to pressure, to fear, to the weight of the world watching and judging every move. Late at night, when the cameras were off, they must have wondered, will our kids face bullying? Will society ever accept our family? Will our bond survive long-term? Will the world always see us as a joke, a scandal, something abnormal? But each time the doubt rose, their answer was the same. They were choosing love, no matter how unconventional, no matter how uncomfortable for others to witness. That is the heart of the story. Not acceptance, not approval, not shock, but choice. 3 people making a choice that clashes with societal expectations, morality debates, and deeply ingrained cultural norms. A choice that challenges the definition of family, loyalty, and boundaries. A choice that many condemn but they embrace wholeheartedly. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it love? Is it manipulation? Is it liberation? Is it emotional chaos disguised as affection? The internet has made its opinions known, but the truth is far more complex than a simple moral judgment. Love doesn't always follow rules, but boundaries exist for a reason, and this story sits exactly in that gray space where human emotion becomes too tangled for clean answers. Maybe it's brave, maybe it's reckless, maybe it's selfish, maybe it's honest, maybe it's harmful, maybe it's healing. No matter what you believe, one fact remains undeniable. This is one of the most unusual relationship dynamics the internet has ever seen, and the world cannot stop watching. Their babies will be born into a universe of opinions, some supportive, many harsh, others simply confused. But the trio insists that their children will be loved, cared for, protected, and raised in a home that, despite being unconventional, is filled with genuine affection. In the end, society may continue to debate, criticize, mock, or analyze their choices. But for Jade, Dani, and Nicholas, the only thing that matters is the bond they have chosen to defend. So the question remains, the question that has taken over social media, podcasts, talk shows, and online comment sections. Is this love? Or is this a line crossed? Only one thing is clear. The answer may say more about us than it does about them. As their story kept spreading, Nicholas, Jade, and Dani found themselves becoming unwilling public figures. They didn't ask for fame. They didn't chase virality. But controversy has a way of choosing its own stage, and suddenly, their living room became a battleground for opinions from around the world. Reporters emailed them. Podcast hosts reached out for interviews. Reality TV producers whispered about a show. Some neighbors avoided them. Others stared with curiosity or disapproval when they walked outside. But whenever they filmed themselves laughing or sharing day-to-day moments, people accused them of enjoying the attention. That's the strange thing about the internet. If you hide, you're guilty of shame. If you share, you're guilty of seeking clout. No matter what you do, someone will rewrite your story for you. In private, their relationships were constantly evolving. Pregnancy brought its own challenges, mood swings, doctor visits, new anxieties, and the physical exhaustion both women experienced at the same time. Nicholas often found himself running between them, trying to be supportive, trying to hold everything together. He wasn't just a boyfriend anymore. He was the emotional anchor of a household that needed a delicate balance to function. There were nights when Jade cried quietly, fear gripping her chest. She didn't always understand her own feelings. Sometimes jealousy crept in, unwelcome and confusing. There were moments when she questioned everything, why she agreed, whether she made the right choice, whether she could truly handle sharing her partner not just with another woman, but with her own mother. Dani would hear her daughter crying and feel guilt-sharp, enough to keep her awake for hours. She never wanted to hurt her. She never wanted to take anything away from her. But she also felt that at this stage of her life, after years of emotional neglect and loneliness, she had finally found someone who made her feel wanted. And Nicholas, though confident in public, often wrestled with the weight of being responsible for 2 pregnancies and 2 deeply intertwined emotional worlds. He loved the attention, yes, the affection of 2 women, the feeling of importance, the illusion of control. But there were moments when he doubted himself. Could he truly handle it all? Could he be the father both children needed? Could he protect the fragile balance between Dani and Jade? He knew one wrong move, one careless word, one hint of favoritism could shatter everything, creating wounds that might never heal. Their doctor visits became a surreal experience. Sitting in a waiting room, a mother and daughter, both pregnant by the same man, drew attention everywhere they went. Some people whispered. Others stared openly. A few smiled awkwardly, unsure how to respond. But the women kept their heads high. Not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. If they allowed the world's judgment to seep in, it would poison everything they were fighting to hold together. Even so, the questions never stopped coming. Does Nicholas love both equally? Do the women ever feel rivalry? What will the children think when they grow up? Are they emotionally stable enough for this? Is this truly consensual? Or is someone being influenced without realizing it? The questions echoed online, but also quietly echoed inside their home. Because deep down, even they didn't have all the answers. At night, when the lights were off, Jade sometimes wondered whether her child would resent being born into a family the world mocked. Dani wondered whether she had crossed a line no mother should cross, no matter how lonely or vulnerable she might have been. Nicholas wondered whether he had stepped into a situation too complicated for any man to manage. But by morning, they would push the doubts down, reminding themselves of the love they claimed to share. One evening became a turning point in their emotional lives. They were sitting together on the couch, Jade with her swollen ankles propped up, Dani knitting tiny baby socks, and Nicholas scrolling through comments on their latest video. As he read one out loud, a particularly vicious comment about their children being born into dysfunction, Jade snapped. Why do people think they know us? She shouted, startling both Dani and Nicholas. Her voice cracked. Why does everyone act like we're monsters? Why does everyone think this is some sick joke? We're not hurting anyone. Dani put her knitting down and reached for her daughter's hand. Baby, people fear what they don't understand. I understand that, Jade said, tears forming, but I hate that our kids are going to grow up hearing this. I hate that people will treat them like mistakes when they're not. They're ours. They're loved. Nicholas moved closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. People talk. That's what they do. But we'll protect them. We'll protect all of you. Dani looked at them both, her heart heavy. In that moment, she realized something she hadn't admitted even to herself. She worried about hurting her daughter more than she cared about the world's judgment, and Jade, despite her strength, remained fragile beneath the surface. Dani promised herself silently that she would spend the rest of her life making sure her daughter never felt second best. But promises are easier to make than to keep, especially in a home where emotions overlap and boundaries blur. As the months passed, their pregnancies progressed. Their baby bumps grew. Their discomfort increased. They took prenatal classes together and laughed through awkward exercises. Nurses often did double takes when Nicholas accompanied both women. A few asked politely. Others avoided eye contact altogether. But the trio kept their smiles steady, creating their own version of normal. The closer they got to the due dates, the more the reality of parenthood set in. It wasn't just a viral situation anymore. It wasn't just a trend. It wasn't just a shocking headline. 2 real babies were coming, 2 innocent lives who would depend on them for everything. For love, for stability, for security. The internet moved on to other scandals, other dramas, but their lives became more intense with each passing week. They filmed less, posted less, focused more on preparing the nursery rooms, soft pastel walls, tiny clothes folded in drawers, ultrasound photos pinned on boards. One night, Dani woke up crying quietly. The weight of motherhood, twice over, in 2 different generations, hit her with a force she wasn't ready for. Her belly was heavy. Her thoughts were heavier. She wondered if her baby would resent her. If Jade would someday resent her. If she had gone too far, even if her intentions were never malicious. Jade heard her mother crying in the next room and walked in gently. She sat beside her on the bed and held her hand, without saying anything for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, trembling. Mom, I don't hate you. I never hated you. I was confused. I still am. But you're my mom, and I love you. We're in this together. Dani broke down completely, leaning into her daughter's arms. Their roles reversed, Jade comforting the mother who once protected her. The moment was painful and beautiful at the same time. It reminded them that their bond, however complicated, was still real. Nicholas, watching from the doorway, realized that no matter how central he seemed in the situation, the true heart of the story was the relationship between these two women. Their forgiveness, their pain, their love, their shared emotional universe. He was part of their world, not the center of it. The night both babies were eventually born, within weeks of each other, was chaotic and emotional. Hospitals don't usually prepare for situations like these, and staff were unsure how to handle the paperwork, the visiting rooms, and the conversations that came with such an unusual family dynamic. But when the first baby cried, then the second, the chaos faded into something quiet and profound. In that moment, everything made sense to them. The world's judgment dissolved beneath the overwhelming love they felt. They held their babies. They looked at each other. And the weight of what they had built, strange, controversial, unconventional, settled into something real. The internet eventually moved on, but their story remained, continuing quietly off camera. Their lives shaped not by viral shock, but by the messy, imperfect, and deeply human love they chose to fight for. And so the question continues echoing, not just online, but in the hearts of anyone who hears the story: is this love or a line crossed? Maybe it's both. But for Jade, for Dani, and for Nicholas, the only truth that matters is the one they live each day. A truth that doesn't fit into society's boxes. A truth that refuses to apologize for existing. A truth that challenges all the rules we think we understand about love, loyalty, and family.